I was never one of those girls who dreamed about getting married. I never pictured myself walking down the aisle in a veil and gown, never spent hours planning what my dress would look like or how my name would sound with my future husband's last name. But then I met Ethan. He was different from any man I had ever met. Thoughtful, funny, patient. He made me feel safe. Like, for the first time, I didn't have to worry about what came next. We fell in love fast, but in a way that felt natural. When he proposed, my answer was a no-brainer. Yes, without a second thought. But not everything was perfect. His mother, Margaret, never really accepted me. At first, I thought it was just in my head. Some mothers are overprotective, right? But the more time passed, the more I realized it wasn't just motherly jealousy, it was personal. She was never outright rude. Women like Margaret don't do that. Instead, she made little remarks disguised as concern. Comments like, "Are you sure you want to get married so young?" I was 28. Or, "Ethan has always loved a well-cooked meal. I hope you know how to cook." Small things that, on their own, might go unnoticed, but together, they formed a pattern. The worst part? Ethan didn't see it. To him, his mom just wanted the best for him. Then came the wedding day, and against all odds, everything went smoothly. The ceremony was beautiful, the reception was lively, the speeches were emotional. For the first time in months, I let myself relax. Maybe I had been overreacting about Margaret. Then a waiter appeared with a glass of champagne. "Your mother-in-law sent this for you," he said with a smile. I thought it was odd, but I didn't dwell on it. I took the glass and raised it for a toast. It was only when I brought it to my lips that I noticed. The silence, the stares, the hushed whispers among the guests. Something was wrong. I looked around and then saw Margaret standing at a distance, watching the scene with a small, satisfied smile, a smile that sent a chill down my spine. I didn't know what she had done. That night, my mind wouldn't rest. What had Margaret done? What could have been in the glass? I didn't drink it, but everyone was looking at me like something terrible had happened. Ethan noticed my tension and asked if I was okay. I wanted to tell him, to make him understand that his mother was up to something. But the exhaustion from the day caught up with me. I decided to let it go, at least for now. The next day, I started piecing things together. My cousin, who had always been my closest confidant, pulled me aside. She told me that just minutes before the toast, Margaret had gone over to a small group of guests, the most gossip-loving ones, of course, and said she had put something in my glass. A mild sedative, apparently, because I was too nervous and needed to relax. She said it was just something light, my cousin told me, but it was the way she said it. Like she wanted everyone to focus on you. Margaret wanted me to drink it in front of everyone, to make me seem drugged, weak, unstable, like I needed to be controlled. Suddenly, everything clicked. The way people were looking at me, the whispers, her satisfied smile. This wasn't just disdain. It was a calculated attempt to destroy me in their eyes. I couldn't just swallow it, not after everything she had already done. And the worst part? Ethan was still completely oblivious. When I told him what my cousin had said, he laughed, said his mother would never do something like that people loved twisting words, that Margaret only wanted to help me relax. That was the moment I knew. If I wanted Ethan to see the truth, words wouldn't be enough. I had to show him. Margaret thought I was weak, that I'd shrink back, cry, and let her win. But she made one fatal mistake. She underestimated the wrong woman. Margaret thought she was clever, that she could plant little seeds of poison and watch from a distance as they grew. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that manipulative people always end up revealing too much when they think they're in control. After the wedding, she escalated her attacks. First, she started showing up at our house unannounced. She'd say she just wanted to check on how we were adjusting to married life, but there was always some innocent remark meant to put me down. "Oh, sweetheart, the house is so cozy. Did you decorate it all by yourself? You don't. Seem very cheerful today. Is everything okay between you and Ethan? Son, you look tired. Is she taking good care of you?" At first, I tried to ignore it, but then came the more serious insinuations. She would call Ethan at work, crying, saying she was worried about me, that I seemed emotionally unstable, that maybe I was just going through a rough adjustment period, and that he should pay attention to see if I needed professional help. Ethan, of course, denied it all. He said he trusted me, but I could see the seed of doubt being planted. The little questions he started asking, the subtle shifts in his gaze whenever I reacted to something. And then the final blow came. One night, Ethan came home from work, pale. He looked me in the eye and said, "My mom showed me messages from you, talking badly about her to my aunt. Awful messages." My blood ran cold. I had never said a single word about Margaret to anyone in his family. I knew that anything I said could be twisted against me. I grabbed his phone, and there they were, my name, my number, saying things that had never once left my mouth. Margaret had faked the messages. She didn't just want to push me away from Ethan. She wanted him to hate me, but I wasn't stupid, and I wasn't going to let this slide. Margaret thought she had won, that she was about to break our marriage. But without realizing it, she had just handed me the perfect weapon to destroy her. I knew I had to act fast. Margaret was getting exactly what she wanted, planting seeds of doubt in my marriage. If I didn't do something, Ethan would end up believing her. But I wasn't about to lose to that woman. I grabbed his phone and studied the messages. The content was cruel, full of words I would never use. But what caught my attention was the weird formatting, the spaces, the punctuation, the misplaced quotation marks. And then it hit me. Margaret wasn't as smart as she thought. She tried to mimic my writing style, but got the details wrong. The messages were too identical, as if they had been copied and pasted from a pre-written text. On top of that, they weren't in my conversation history. If I had sent them, they'd be on both my phone and the recipient's. I pulled out my own phone and searched my files. Nothing. Ethan. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. If I sent these messages, they should be on my phone, too, right? He hesitated. I saw the doubt in his eyes. I grabbed my laptop and checked my message backup. Nothing. Not a single text that even remotely resembled those. Now, I continued, if I didn't send them, that means someone faked them, and you know exactly who had a reason to do that. The silence in the room was suffocating. He ran a hand over his face, looking uneasy. I don't know what to believe, I wanted to scream. After everything, after all her manipulations, he still wasn't sure what to believe. So I took it a step further. I asked my cousin, who had been at the wedding and had already witnessed Margaret's first stunt, to casually bring up the messages in Ethan's family group chat. The result was better than I expected. Ethan's aunt, the one who was supposedly the recipient of those fake messages, denied everything. She said she had never received anything from me, that she had no idea where Margaret had even gotten them from. And just like that, the lies started to unravel. Ethan went pale. He picked up his phone and dialed his mother's number. We need to talk. This time she would have to explain herself, and I was going to watch her entire castle crumble piece by piece. I wanted to say Margaret was speechless when Ethan confronted her, but that would be underestimating her. She didn't hesitate for even a second. "Oh, sweetheart, are you really questioning your own mother because of this girl?" Her voice came out soft, trembling. She was already playing the victim before even denying it. "I only wanted to protect you. I saw signs in her, troubling signs. Can't you see it?" Ethan looked at me. then at his phone. He still wanted to believe. His mother wasn't capable of something this twisted. Then Margaret made her final move. If you trust her more than me, I don't know what else to say. It breaks my heart. And there it was, emotional blackmail. But this time, I was ready. Margaret, I cut in, keeping my voice steady. If those messages are real, then show Ethan the full conversation on your phone. She blinked. Her mask slipped for a second. I deleted them. I was so hurt, I didn't want to keep them. Convenient, I said, crossing my arms. Because your sister-in-law also said she never received anything. So how is that possible? Silence. The tables had turned, and that's when Ethan finally saw it. For the first time, he understood what was happening. He realized his mother wasn't trying to protect him. She was trying to break him down emotionally so he'd stay dependent on her. Ethan tossed his phone onto the table. I can't believe this, Mom. You really faked all of it? Margaret panicked. Son, you don't understand. I wanted to protect you. Protect me from who? He ran a hand through his hair, exhausted. From a wife who loves me? From a woman who's never done anything to you? Margaret trembled. She knew she had lost. And then, with the coldness of someone who had nothing left to lose, she looked straight at me and whispered, I should have gotten rid of you before the wedding. That was when Ethan cut the last thread that still tied her to his life. The silence after those words was absolute. I already knew Margaret hated me, but hearing those words out loud with so much venom was a shock, even for me. But the most shocking part? Ethan's face. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He didn't try to make excuses for his mother, like he always did. He just stood there, staring at her as if she were a complete stranger, and then he did something I never expected. He got up, grabbed his phone, and blocked her number right in front of me. Then he looked at Margaret and said, in the coldest voice I've ever heard, You're out of my life. She tried to run to him, grab his hand, cry, beg. But Ethan didn't move. For the first time, he didn't fall for her game. I wanted to feel relieved. I wanted to feel vindicated. But all I felt was sadness. Not for her, but for Ethan. For how long he had lived under that kind of manipulation without even realizing it. In the days that followed, Margaret tried everything. She called relatives, made up stories, tried to convince people that I was turning Ethan against his family. But this time, no one bought it. The truth was already out. She was alone. The final blow came a few weeks later. We found out that, in her obsession with ruining me, Margaret had used the phone of one of Ethan's employees to create the fake messages. And that employee? Well, she spilled everything. When Ethan confronted Margaret one last time, she finally broke. There were no more excuses, no more manipulations to save her. He simply said, I hope one day you realize what you lost. And then we walked away. From that day on, we never saw her again. Ethan went through a long process of therapy to understand the impact his mother had on his life. It was hard for him to accept that someone who was supposed to love him unconditionally only saw him as something to control. As for me, I was never one for revenge. But knowing that Margaret lost everything because of her own arrogance, well, let's just say fate handled things better than I ever could, and my marriage, better than ever. Margaret tried to destroy me, but in the end, she was the one who destroyed herself. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.